Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's professional development learning. I'm very excited to have you here. We are going to be talking about formative classroom walkthroughs today. So, buckle in. Here we go. Our agenda for today, we are going to start with our inclusive welcome. We are going to talk about what are formative classroom walkthroughs. Then we are going to discuss a little bit about how we change our focus from instructions to the learners. Then we're also going to talk about student and staff improvement and how this process can help everyone increase their outcomes or improve their outcomes. And then we'll have our intentional close. So our goal today is building a deeper understanding of what are formative classroom walkthroughs and what kind of impact can they have on teacher and student outcomes, as well as the relationships between our staff members and our students and all stakeholders throughout the school. So starting off with our inclusive welcome, I want you to take a second, whether you are joining us in person, thank you for being here. If you're joining us virtually, again, thank you for joining us. Appreciate having you here. But I want you to think about, out of these four, now I had a really hard time identifying just four, because there's lots of great duos out there, but take a second, share with an elbow partner, which is the best duo out of these four? You have Brian O'Connor and Dominic Toretto from Fast and Furious. You have Samwise Gamgee and Frodo Baggins from The Lord of the Rings. You have Mario and Luigi, the Mario Brothers. And then you have Timon and Pumbaa from The Lion King. So take a second, think about what's your favorite or what's the best duo out of these four. All right, so heard a lot of mixed answers, lots of good conversations about which ones are the best. I'm going to let you sit on it. Those of you who do know me already know my answer, but I'm going to let you sit on it for a second. I'll let you know at the very end what my choice is, but I want you to think about when you made these decisions about who was the best duo. What makes them the best duos? Well, I'll tell you, I chose these four because of these particular reasons. One, constantly working together, right? Now in the beginning we had some rough family ties. If you've seen the movies, you understand. But they're inseparable, right? They're always together, they are always working together, and the collaboration is top tier. They're always working towards that shared goal. They're aiming to do something, and they're doing it together no matter what. And ultimately, they all have this epic ability to be epic, right? I mean, you can't beat these duos. They are who they are. Their personalities and what they can do and what they choose to do is what makes them the best of the best. So, what does that have to do with anything we're talking about today? Ultimately, our goal is to become the best duo. Admin, duo may not be the right word, but we're going to assume that we as an admin team, we as a staff are going to be the best duo. We as staff and students are going to be the best duo. Us as a school community and the families or the community members that are involved in our educational community are the best duo because we're going to have all of these things. And how we're going to do that is through formative classroom walkthroughs. Now, I know you're probably like, what are we talking about and how are we going to get this epic ability to improve our student and our staff outcomes through this process? What this looks like is we are talking about the formative piece being a contribution to improving our learning. So Susan Brookhart has this text really talking about formative classroom walkthroughs and what that looks like. Definitely a text. It's in our school libraries if you'd like to check it out. Highly recommend. But the idea is that when we formatively assess our students, we're giving them feedback. We're continuously trying to allow them to improve their skills and their concepts and the knowledge that they're demonstrating. That's our goal too. But we're going to do that with a student lens. So we're not going to just do it as I come in and I'm observing each and every one of you and saying, I'm looking just at your instructional practices. I'm just looking at your questioning technique. That's not the goal. The goal is for us to come in, we're going to collaborate together. Both of us are going to be doing the learning. So I, as an observer in your classroom, am going to do some learning about what we can do to make our school better and our school-wide practices and initiatives better. And we're also going to learn from our students and what they're doing. So what are our students doing? What are they learning? What are they saying? What is the action that we're seeing from them in the classrooms? And is it matching up what our learning intention is? That's what these walkthroughs are really going to allow us to do. So, knowing this, some of us probably are thinking a little bit in the traditional format because that's how we've done it before, and that's okay. So I wanted to give you an idea of what does this look like when we look at traditional versus the new formative way of a walkthrough. What does it look like? So in the traditional sense, we've come in and it's been an observation of the teacher and we're looking for their best practices. We're looking at what is the instructional techniques that are being used, and that's what we're giving you feedback on. A lot of your EE or your educator effectiveness has always been just, let's look at those pieces and how can you as an educator be better, right? And ultimately that's what we're doing is we're trying to make our educator, we're trying to develop our learning and to continuously improve. But the follow through is only on we're following through on a teacher end, or we're just following up with, hey, I'm going to come chat with you. How's this going? Or we have our cycle where you're meeting with me throughout the year. That's the traditional way. We're going to try to make this a little more, let's say modern. That's a better way. So this formative walkthrough includes we're evaluating school-wide improvements. So not just a teacher. We're looking at how can we improve our practices, how can we improve how our students are learning, and what are we doing throughout the building that's good, and what's also things that we can work on. So the biggest shift is we're going to look at this and we're going to observe through a student's lens. So if I were going in there, Burkhardt really pushes this idea of sitting in a student's seat. If I were sitting in a student's seat, what am I doing? What am I being asked to do? Am I being able to do it? What does my learning look like? And how am I showing I'm learning at the end? So looking at our learning goals and our learning targets, are our students actually showing that they're learning those things that we want them to? And then let's follow up, not just as an observer, a chief observer is how they phrase it, and the educator that's leading the classroom, let's talk to the students. Let's ask their feedback. Let's figure out what's going well for them, what's something we can improve on, what's something how are they setting their goals in their room? And those are all pieces that we can use together to improve our practices as teachers and our practices for our students so that their academic and social and emotional outcomes are improved. It is proven that when you have well-rounded, more educated teachers, the better student outcomes are going to be. So we're going to learn together and we're going to collaborate together to make this happen. So that's the one we want. So why on earth does this matter? Well, I want you to think about all of these things that we've done so far, okay? We've already talked about PLCs, professional learning communities. We're doing that each and every day. We do that once a week in our grade level teams that we're consistently visiting those 4 questions. We talked about that guaranteed and viable curriculum. We are talking standards-based grading. We are using Teacher Clarity and the Teacher Clarity Playbook Planner to really help us plan out what that curriculum looks like. We've also talked about assessment practices and grading policies. Student or standards-based learning is what we're going for. It's not standards-based grading. It is in a sense, but we're calling it standards-based learning because we should be grading what the students are learning. not just grading other things. So we've done a lot of work on that and are going to continue to learn on that. We did a lot of deep dive into interventions and supports that are supported through our professional learning communities, specifically through our equitable multi-level systems of supports. So what does that look like in our SOAR time? What does that look like during our classroom instruction time? And now we're going to start doing these formative walkthroughs. This right here is going to help us see how are we doing in these areas? What can we continue to do in these areas to improve our student, staff, and school-wide initiatives? All of it works together, right? All of our ideas, all of the things that we're doing, they all work together for us to continuously improve. So that's a lot. So what's next? And where do we go from here? We're going to start with some instructional rounding. This is a little like bite-sized piece of what maybe our formative walkthroughs could be. They're also known as learning walks. We've done this with our Universal Design for Learning process when we were going in and just observing, like, we're not critiquing a teacher. We're just, what are students saying and doing that is evidence of agency? What are we seeing students do that proves they can access the materials that we're providing? So this is going to be something we're doing, and it's going to be focused on all of those pieces we've talked about so far. So thinking about PLCs, we're going to break it down. We're going to do some instructional rounding on each question. And then we're also later in the year going to do some instructional rounding on assessments and grading policies. That'll just be continuous learning for us all, and it's not non-evaluative because we're all learning together. So through Edutopia, there is a resource here for you to check out if you want to do some more learning around instructional rounding. The next one that we're going to do is we're going to do a walkthrough goal setting. So a sign up is coming soon for both of these. This one will be first, but when we get to that midway point where our first semester is done, we're going to do some walkthrough goal setting. So we'll have one-on-one meetings to discuss like what your student learning goals are for your classroom. And we're also going to look a little bit at your Clifton Strengths Finder and those basements and balconies. So thinking about what your top 5 strengths are, if you've not dug into those recently, I would suggest maybe refreshing your memory a little bit. But then thinking about the basements and balconies, like, hey, this is your top 5 strength, but here's maybe a not so great thing about that strength. Like, you do really good in these areas, but here are some things that we want to be careful of. And thinking about how that might influence how we teach. And then the last piece that we're looking at here, get this out of the way. This last piece that we're looking at here is just our continued learning. So we're going to look at learning targets and intentions, our standards-based learning that we do through our guaranteed and viable curriculum, our feedback and reflection, how are we conferencing with students, how are we asking them what they know, what they don't know, or those PLC questions. There's a resource here that really digs into Bloom's taxonomy and Webb's depth of knowledge, which helps you understand, like, what questions do we ask at a very basic depth of knowledge, and how can we dig into that a little bit more to truly know what students are doing, understanding, and not understanding. So those are all there for you. So I know that's a lot, and I told you I was going to tell you who my duo was, and of course it's got to be Samwise and Frodo. I mean, come on. You cannot convince me otherwise that there is a better duo out there if you've not seen The Lord of the Rings and you've not watched the trilogy, I highly recommend you do, because talk about a teamwork, friendship, power duo on their journey to Mordor. So when we're talking about our journey together, might not be as perilous as Sam and Frodo's. I really hope not, but we might have some of those ebbs and flows. So what I want you to do first, because we're on that first leg of our journey where things are kind of smooth, right? We're still doing some learning. We're maybe not into the scary mountains quite yet. If you know, you know. But in your grade level teams, we are going to discuss these 3 questions, and I wanted to give you them ahead of time to either journal and write some answers on your own, or just to get to thinking about them. You don't have to have anything formal done, but I really want you to think about some of these things that are going to be addressed in our formative walkthroughs that we're going to learn together. So, first off, how do you make your learning targets and intentions? Where do they come from? How do you make them? Are you pulling a Gandalf and magically creating them? Sorry, my nerdiness is coming out and I love it. Number 2, what does feedback look like during a lesson? So not on it's a tongue twister. But in general, like during your lessons, how are you giving feedback to your students? How do they know they're doing well, and how do they know that they're not on the right track? Or how do you know that they don't know? What does that look like? And then 3, how do students self-assess themselves? So what kind of feedback are students giving themselves? What kind of goals are they setting? Are they giving you any feedback throughout your day? What do exit tickets look like? All of these things. So those are going to be our next steps. We're going to start small and we're going to start to implement this piece. You have some of that learning on that last slide to really just like get us to that place of that dual partnership that we're going to be working together. And this is one of my favorite quotes of all time, the "Not all those who wander are lost," from the Lord of the Rings. And I thought, how perfect, because sometimes when we do these things, it feels like we're wandering off the path or we're just doing another thing, but there's an intent behind it, and it's to make sure that we can all work together and do what's best for all of us, not just our students, not just us as a staff, not just for our parents and our community. It's for all of us. And yes, it might feel like we are the blind leading the blind sometimes, and that's okay. We will get there, and we're going to work together to be intentional and give our students what they need to be successful. So, thank you again, whether you joined me in person or virtually. Really do appreciate that. Here are all those resources for you to check out, with some on the other sides as well, but they're in here. Highly encourage you to check those out. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I hope you all have a great rest of your evening. Bye now.